Well, thanks, Anne, for far too big a build-up, to be honest. What I'm going to do is give you quite a brief tour, if you like, of something that's a really, really big subject matter. But what I really want it to be is, whilst a lot of it's going to be about what London's doing and will be doing, really to be thought-provoking about what you could do now and what you possibly could or should do in the future. But more specifically, we're going to go through four things. What on earth I mean by digital, why is it important, but two most important things, how can we use it to get people active, and what is our collective role going forwards. But first of all, who on earth am I? I'm a data geek. I've been in the closet for quite a while, but I think this is quite an outing. And specifically on performance management and impact measurement. That's my background, obviously more recently in a chief exec role for a CSP. As Anne alluded to, I also ran a startup for 5 years. I know the challenges. I've very much been in the technology startup world for a long, long time. Unfortunately, I didn't own it, which is why I'm here talking to you today and actually have to work for a living. But as I say, I'm chief exec of London Sport and also an amateur tech enthusiast and quite a regular speaker on the tech scene in London. Probably better known as the only person in Shoreditch without a beard and skinny jeans. So first of all, what do we mean by digital? It's quite a broad agenda, but specifically what I'm talking about today is everything from wearables right through to databases, club websites and everything in between, whether it's social media, participant management system, mobile apps, all those different things. So it's very, very broad. And so a lot of the content today is going to be very general to how we can harness some of those things. Why is it important? In terms of London, we've got a massive target. We're trying to get 1 million people more active by 2020, and it won't just happen on its own. And whilst it's fair to say that all the traditional sports development stuff is absolutely vital, no one's saying it's not. If there's going to be a step change, a revolution in participation, I'm convinced it will be digital. And I'm going to show you a few ways where I think that can be the case. Crucially, we don't have to innovate. There's other sectors have already done it. And a lot of the strategy that we've created in London is simply recycling some of the ideas that other sectors have already done. All we've got to do is realise what potential they have and implement them in sport and physical activity. And crucially, I think, it's the biggest mismatch of where our sector is and other sectors are now. And so a little bit of effort in this area can reap huge results in terms of participation. Okay, so where can we use it to get people active? Lots of different ways, but I think there are 3 different areas where CSPs can use it. Firstly, it has massive potential, as we've seen already, as a participation type in its own. Downloading an app, and that app gets someone and keeps someone active. Data and insight, knowing far more than we've ever wished to know about participants. And thirdly, facilitating the customer journey. So first of all, this one about a self-contained, if you like, participation in your pocket. We've seen a number of private companies really nail this area and have reaped massive, massive benefits from it. You could argue it's not necessarily the inactives, but I think there is scope to actually shift it towards inactives as well, and I think that can be our role. But crucially, we, sport and physical activity, should not do it on our own. Mainly because it's incredibly expensive to do, it's very, very difficult to do, and quite often we do it badly. And what's even worse, when we do it badly, we don't even give up. We don't go bankrupt. We keep ploughing more money into it. And I realise I completely contradict myself because I actually ran a startup in the public sector. But that's the point. I know it's difficult. I know we were lucky, and that not everyone can be that lucky. But what should we do? We should partner with the private sector. Quite often said, not that often done, because ultimately they can provide the tech savviness and the hunger for success, and we can provide the contacts, the expertise in terms of behaviour change in sectors within society. But what we should all take away is that our currency should be participation. Let's not be greedy by trying to create our own Strava. Let Strava do it, and just celebrate the success of increased participation. So how have we sought to do this in London? We rolled out HIM. And despite a thorough briefing, this is what he said for us.
Hi folks, I'm Boris Johnson, Mayor of London. I'm very sorry I can't be with you today. Now I've heard of the Olmec, the Mixtec, the Toltec, the Aztec, but I never before heard of FitTech. And while the Aztecs were of course very bad for your heart in the sense they used to cut it out with an obsidian knife and put it on a chak moo, FitTech, on the other hand, is absolutely fantastic. And what it does is it uses new technology, information technology of all kinds, to help people to take exercise and thereby to get their hearts in better condition, reduce obesity across our city, and help the cardiovascular condition of all Londoners. And that's a fantastic aim. I want London to be at the very heart of fit tech activity.
What can you say? Well, what I can try and say in my second role as a Boris translator is what he really meant. He was actually announcing London's intention to be the centre of the sport and fit tech world. They've done it in fintech, financial tech. We want to do it in sport and fitness tech. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to enable the private sector to flourish in London? We want to create an environment where startups can flourish, and we, the public sector rather, can really help that happen. We're going to hold major events to get clever tech people in the same room as sport and stand well back and see what happens, but creating those relationships. We've done that. We had our first major event at the Science Museum this year, which I'm sure some of you were there. It was really successful. 200 people, some of the world's foremost authorities on technology and data in the same room as sport thought leaders, and it's really reaping dividends already. The second thing we're doing is investing directly in startups. Not for equity, just here's some money to give you a leg up to make you successful. We've started doing that, and I'll show you some of the results in a second. The third thing, can we create incubators? Can we share office space, give office space even, to startups, to not only help their overhead, but put them in contact with people from sport? And fourthly, which we'll talk about a little bit more tomorrow in a 2-hour workshop on data, it's going to be fascinating, but is around open data and its power. Its power to transform whole sectors. It really is quite mind-boggling. We haven't quite done those two yet, but it's work in progress with some of our partners. So in terms of the Sports Technology Innovation Fund, where we directly invested in startups, we ended up giving 5 different companies £10,000 each to give them that leg up. And this is the first time, and this is funded by the Mayor, to actually say, yeah, we know that some of you won't actually even launch to the market. You won't succeed. But those that do will have a massive transformational effect in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, which means it's high risk, high reward funding. Can we rethink a little bit and do a little bit more of that? I think it's worth doing. But I'll see you in a couple of years and see if I was right. But I do want to just give you one example, and this is fifth one, exciting engineering, just to give you a flavour of the kind of thing we're talking about.
Exciting engineering.
We are forever being told that tomorrow we will run out of fuel and that we need renewable and sustainable energy sources. By harnessing the abundance of natural energy, the world need never run out. Let me explain. Natural energy is simply energy that is naturally replenished over a human timescale. This includes sunlight, waves, geothermal, and wind, but not that type of wind. The good thing is that natural energy has been occurring for millions of years, so there is no harmful effects on the environment. The bad side is that it can be pretty tricky to harness. Wind turbines, solar farms, and hydro dams are all steps in the right direction, but they're way too expensive to build enough to power the planet. My idea brings the race to renewable energy down to an individual level. I'm calling on people power. Cycling is one of the most participated sport and leisure activities in the UK, with over 28 million people having access to a bike. That many people have the potential to generate a huge amount of energy. Gyms have already started plugging in spinning bikes to generate electricity. If this process can be mobilised, then energy that would have otherwise been lost can be captured and stored for later use. My idea is to attach ergonomic magnets to the spokes of the bike and to the frame. As the wheel rotates, the magnetic fields interact through electromagnetic induction, producing an EMF, or electrical energy. This energy can be transferred via wire, or to preserve the bike's looks, to an antenna by EM wave, using resonant inductive coupling. Energy is sent to a supercapacitor to be stored. The capacitor is in the shape of a water bottle, so it can fit into any standard bottle cage. This is Joe. He's average. If average Joe rode the average annual distance on the average bike at average city speeds, he could power a PC on standby for 362 days. If a system like this was fitted to every Boris bike in London, by now they would have generated enough energy to power a whopping 185 UK homes for an entire year.
The possibility to change the world with one simple idea is why this is exciting engineering.
The point about that is that it's an example of innovation, but crucially, it's trying to get people active for different reasons, whether it's an environmental hook that may go into some of those people who aren't currently active, or even a feed-in tariff to save money off their bill. There is so much innovation out there that this fund has started to unearth and think a little bit differently about getting people active. Second thing I want to talk about is about data and insight, knowing more about our customer, and there's massive potential here. In our own lifetime, we've seen personal data go from pretty much written in a book via a good old 1980s pedometer through to wearable technology. But it's the next step that is quite mind-boggling. We're at the point when body and technology is about to converge. Not necessarily a microchip that's shown in that picture, but they're already trialling injectable technology and tattoos that quantify people's activity. And why is that important? Because it's an exponential growth in the amount of data about people out there. And we don't harness anything like a fraction of it. If we did, we'd know far more and it can really shape our work. Why? Because if we learn what people want in far more granular detail, we have the ability to contact them with the right message at the right time and ultimately get people active and change behaviours. A little example, and when we ran our technology event at the Science Museum, we created an app for it, and whilst some of it was to make the event run more smoothly, most of it was showcasing geolocation technology. This shows all the delegates at 8 o'clock before the event, as you can see, all the way around London and the periphery. A little bit closer in, still 8 o'clock. 8:30, converging on the venue until at 9 o'clock. 95% of people there, a few stragglers, probably our staff. But the point is, yeah, it's very visual, great. But so what? The fact is you can draw geofences around any single location to know who went in an area, how long they were there for, and ultimately what they were doing. Can you imagine drawing that around the London Marathon track or the spectators, so that every spectator in that 10 minutes when they think they can actually run a marathon, pushing them a message for a Sofa to 5K event. Right message, right time, right people. Also, you know an awful lot more about them. For example, at that Science Museum event, 38% of people went past a gym that morning, and 78% of people went through a Costa coffee. Again, so what? But can you imagine if you had all of your participants on there, and exactly where they went and when? It would make planning programs far more effective. Exactly what people want, where they are, in real time. And also pitching to brands. If you can go to Costa Coffee and say, did you know 78% of people go past one of your stores, they can see the effect of their bottom line of their sponsorship. Really, really powerful data. But not only have you had all your participants, if all of us had all our participants on there, that would be incredibly powerful. And also when you add in some other anonymized data from Facebook, Public Health or Google, you have an incredibly powerful resource to make decisions on. And that's what we're doing. We're running a big data pilot. It's going to be a 4-month pilot with a data company called Epsilon. Just to have 4 data sources to start with, they're still being finalised at the moment, so that we can start building up a really rich patchwork of data on people, anonymised, but then when it all combined, we can start bringing it to life so that we know exactly what people have done over a period, what the hooks are to make them change behaviour. We don't know what it's going to say, that's the point of big data, but it'll say something we don't know yet. And that's what it's really exciting. Lastly, customer journey. We've seen this earlier from Jenny, and here are the percentages of people of the population within each. And I think it's fair to say our job is to get people from around there to there. We need to get inactive people active. But if you actually analyse the customer journey at the moment, it's pretty clunky. If we can try and improve the translation rate, particularly from preparation to action, will have won. It's a small percentage change will have massive results on participation. But analyse the current journey. Someone who's in preparation wants to be active. How do they access it? Pretty challenging, normally by making phone calls to various leisure centres. Google can't help. It's a real nightmare. And there's a possibility that a large number of them just won't bother. That there's really not a smooth transition. Compare that to travel. If you want to go on holiday, and I'm not saying it's the same purchase, it's not, but it's a good parallel. You have loads of choice from Expedia through to booking.com to access the thing you want to do, book it, and off you go. As I say, I'm not comparing the two directly, but how can we try and create that for sport? The answer is twofold. We need to digitise our opportunities, which will be part of the 2 hours tomorrow, which we'll go through. But secondly, to make it open data. Allow these kind of apps, the Expedia for sport, to create, give them the data. Why wouldn't we? Because they'll do our job for us. Lastly and briefly, what should our role be? Should we lead this? It's a balanced discussion, actually. I think there are yeses and nos. We're in a good position because there's definitely a gap. No one else is doing this. No one else has done. That's why we're so far behind other sectors. We're agenda-free. We don't really care what sport it is, what activity it is. We just want to make sure people do get more active. So I think we're pretty well positioned to do that. And we work with everybody. Private, public, physical activity, health, everybody. So we're really well positioned to drive this. But it's fair to say we don't have the expertise. And it's expensive to get people in. If we want to do this, we're going to have to get qualified and ultimately expensive people to do it. We can't just dabble in this. And it's a distraction from our current core role. It might be a core role going forwards, who knows? But the point is, if we're going to lead this, we can't do it half-heartedly. We've really got to go into it. That's what we're doing in London. And I'd really welcome anyone who wants to join us. Please have a conversation. So in summary, there are loads of opportunities for digital and data to really revolutionise participation. And it's huge scale. We're not talking tens of thousands here, we're talking millions of people reach. So it's something that modest investment in really can reap massive results. And the answers are there. All we've got to do is look left and right at other sectors of what they've done to revolutionise their sectors and rip off the ideas. But if one takeaway, I think it's fair to say the world is changing really, really fast. And us, physical activity and sport, need to keep up. A slightly facetious example, let's be Argos, let's change our business model and not be Woolworths. And I think we can be at the centre of that, but only if we really mean it and we really want to. Thanks for listening.